While everybody celebrates the announcement of both the Capcom Fighting Collection and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection, QuByte has quietly been re-releasing some oft-forgotten classics from the early 1990s. Dubbed QuClassics, we've recently seen modern console ports of both caveman puzzle games The Humans, as well as The Immortal, one of Electronic Arts' earliest fantasy adventure games. That's really cool, but are either of these games actually worth playing? To answer this question, I've decided to flip through the pages of video games and computer entertainment, Sega Pro, Mega Play, and more to see what the critics said about these games when they first came out. Join me for this debut episode of QuClassics Review Crew. Before there were humans, there were lemmings. Okay, I'm not actually sure that's true, but it's definitely the case when it comes to video games. Seeing the worldwide success of Lemmings by Psygnosis, Imagitech Designs decided to create a similar puzzle game starring a bunch of cavemen. The result was The Humans, an instantly likable side-scroller that would not only get ported to everything from the Genesis to the Super NES to the Lynx, but also spawned two different sequels. This port of the game features both the 16-bit and portable versions, though it sadly ignores the 1995 and 2009 follow-ups. When it came to the reviews, the critics were sharply divided. The highest score I could find was Dave's take in Mega Play, where he gave it a 92% and called it an addictive game with plenty of levels to keep players busy. However, in the very same issue, GOG gave the game a 75% and complained that it was too slow. Yeah, like I said, the critics were divided. When Mega reviewed The Humans in 1993, they focused more on the Lemmings similarities than anything else. Not quite Lemmings, but pretty close. It's slightly repetitive, but fans of this style of game won't be disappointed. Across the board, the British critics were more likely to give the game a high score than the American critics. You definitely saw this in the Electronic Gaming Monthly reviews, where the scores averaged a mere 6.75. However, I think it's video games and computer entertainment who ended up doing the best job describing the problems with The Humans. In the same issue, they gave us reviews of both Star Fox and Bubsy the Bobcat. They complained that the main fault with The Humans isn't that it fails to live up to Lemmings, but rather, Humans fails to live up to itself. Print ads, box art, and the instruction manual have created an image of a game with humor. Humans would pull players in by amusing them, or so it seemed. What the image really does is try to compensate for the game's woefully unengaging and slow pace. 30 years later, and now completely detached from the humorous advertisements, perhaps gamers will have a chance to appreciate The Humans for what it's always been: a rock-solid puzzle game. Long before Electronic Arts published Dragon Age, they gave us The Immortal, a dark and moody isometric adventure game released on the Nintendo Entertainment System, Genesis, and a whole bunch of computers. You play an unnamed wizard who enters the Labyrinth of Eternity to rescue the hero's mentor, Mortimer. The wizard will need to solve puzzles, avoid death traps, and use a wide assortment of magic spells to kill the monsters of the maze. The game is best known for its dark fantasy visuals, epic battles, and oddly compelling story. And what's really cool is that this brand new port features both the 8 and the 16-bit versions of the game, which are different in some fascinating ways. While it may not have been the kind of success that spawned multiple sequels, The Immortal was well received by the critics. In fact, I think it's fair to say that many critics actually loved the game. I mean, it got a 5 out of 5 from GamePro, saying that The Immortal conjured up an extraordinary adventure for 16-bit fantasy fans and action buffs. Its only drawback is that once you solve the game, you've solved it. This is a linear adventure, which makes replaying it much like rereading a good whodunit novel when you already know whodunit. Of course, trying to solve the game will drive you nuts. If you want to add some major magic to your video game life, fire up The Immortal. You also saw similar high marks from the completely unrelated Sega Pro, which ended up giving the game a 94%. What a corker Immortal is! Blood and Guts fans will adore it, as will hardened arcade adventurers. I love the way you can chop an enemy in half, blow his brains up, or make his skin fall away from his body. Excellent! It's also worth mentioning that fellow British publication Megatech gave it an almost identical score of 93%. Believe it or not, even the lowest scores were still pretty good. Mean Machine Sega gave it an 85% and called it a classic. The Immortal's greatest strength is the wealth of fiendish puzzles found in every room. There are some sections that might drive you mad, but won't stop you from playing. Video games and computer entertainment also liked The Immortal, but complained that the adventure was too short. The only major drawback is that the 7 levels leave you wanting more. This is no gauntlet-sized epic, but offers more detail and less length. Adventure game fans have been the most patient and the most ignored of video game players. Finally, they've got something to celebrate. An ingenious game that does justice to the classic sword and sorcery genre. Short, but great seems to be the consensus here. Give it a download and see for yourself. Hey, thanks for watching me talk about those QuByte classics. In case you're interested in either of these games, they're both being sold separately for around $8 each. The website also suggests that there are more of these classic games to come, so it's only a matter of time before we do this whole song and dance thing again. Now, here's the question I have for you. What classic game collection should be announced next? Sure, we're getting big collections from Capcom and Konami, but what other company or franchise needs to have a compilation? Personally speaking, I think it's time that Sega release a collection of their 8 and 32-bit games. Also, the Dreamcast. Actually, pretty much everything except for the Genesis. Let me see your picks in the comments below. We'll be back later this week with even more stuff, so please, do me a favor and click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.